this past week has been a really interesting one for me. I actually had something come up and it was emotional, but there was my art teacher from high school. So I got news from his wife that he has cancer and it's pretty far along. And so I went and I visited my high school art teacher. So Joe Cammarato was the greatest guy. He was so much fun. And he was such like he would give me the keys to the art room. This is how cool he was. And he would say, shh, don't tell anybody that I let you in here. And so he let me keep an extra set of keys. And I would go into the room and I would just work on projects for hours and hours. Sometimes like 5 or 6 hours after school was closed. So that art teacher, here we are 20 years later. So I went out and I drew a portrait of him. So I thought it might be cool to show you the portrait of Joe and Mr. Cammarato, as I call him. My wife laughs because she's like, why do you call your teachers who taught you so long ago, why do you call them by their full name, like Mr. Cammarato? I'm like, I just have to. He's still my teacher. So this is Mr. Cammarato right here, and such a great guy. And so he lay in the bed, and I just simply put, as he lay there, I pulled out my pencil and paper and I drew him, and he just looked over at me, and he was a really, really fun person. And then he was pretty just kind of like gentle. He was pretty weak, and we shared great stories. The two of us were laughing pretty hard. So when I was done with the drawing, I did the drawing over the course of like 2 hours. Then I gave it to him and his wife. So it's kind of cool. And I like telling these stories because I like sharing with you guys the power of art, and how you can use art in your world. So I posted it on my Facebook page, and hundreds of students from all across the country all wrote in, and they all wrote messages to him. And so as he lay there, he has his drawing, and then his wife read him hundreds of comments. It was just like a way that everyone could connect. And he was laying in the bed as she read all the comments from his former students. So it's just so cool how God can take our gifts. And I always pray, I say, God, if you could do, what you did back in the Gospels, where you took the loaves and the fishes and you divided them and you multiplied them to feed the multitudes. And that's just like what God can do with our loaves and fishes, our talents. And God can use them to feed the multitudes in ways that we never could imagine. So again, there's the portrait of him, and his sons wrote to me and everything like that. So this thought it'd be a fun story to share. Well, with that, let's jump over to what we're doing today. I have a little bit of a wacky lesson. So I'm going to jump over to here and talk about our new friend. So this, I'm walking over so that you could see it. And this right here is our friend, the Roman soldier. I barely want to touch him because if I touch him, then maybe his head will fall forward. So long story short, I got this is a mannequin that I use in my drawing and painting studio. I use it for commissions. So like this right here is my palette, and I paint with right on there. And then I'll drape like a sweater over him. And then that's how I paint portrait commissions. So more on that another time. But he also serves as a great subject for something like this, where rather than having someone pose the whole time with a helmet on, we're today going to draw the helmet right here. So in particular, we're just going to focus on obviously the lines of it, but I want to capture the light on it. You know what I mean? So I'm really excited for that. This is a real, authentic reproduction. I don't know if that necessarily made sense, like a real authentic reproduction, but it's made of real metal. And it's a really convincing helmet that I bought for this painting. So with that, I will jump back over. We are going to be looking at this the whole time that we draw and paint. And so I'm going to put him up right in the corner of my screen as I work. And so you will see this right here. And again, my apologies for this slight delay in setting everything up today. What I want to do though is right now I'm going to maybe angle the camera in a little bit closer, because I want to get that helmet, I want to get it like really like good and close right there. So I'm going to see, yes, I can. And then I'm just going to lower this just a little bit, the table that he's sitting on. See if I can lower it. And all right, his head is, I'm going to try to angle the camera up so that I could get the perfect angle for what we're doing right here. So just give me a moment. Nice, okay. Right there. Cool. So I don't even know if this necessarily is going to be the final position. I'll know better when I have somebody posing for this. So as of right now, I can't tell. I'd have to wait until somebody was right there and they had the helmet on their head. But it's great to do studies like this before you begin a painting. And so part of what I'm trying to do in these classes is show you how to do studies so that you yourself can, you can work with the process with like more ambitious things that you yourself are thinking of. So I'm not just doing a Roman helmet today. I'm also doing, like the artistic process of actually showing you, okay, I set this up on the other side of the room. And yeah, so pretty much that's it. So with that, I'm going to grab just a regular pencil right here, and I am going to jump into, let me see right here, the big broad shapes. So as I think of the big broad shape, what I think of is like, it's basically a sphere, right? And so that sphere kind of like has like an egg shape. You know what, let's leave a little bit of room for the face, because what we may want to do with this is we may want to get the face underneath. Today's really a study of armor, but I'm going to, let me also slide the image over so that we have sufficient room to work with. So I'm going to slide that over a little bit to the side, perfect. And now we have room to work with it. And jumping back over here, doing like a half egg again for the head. And I'm very sloppy in the beginning. That's on purpose because I want for the piece to be expressive. I want to explore my shapes. Now, here's a thing I'm confronted with. These side pieces right here are huge. They're like mega huge. That doesn't mean that you necessarily, as an artist, have to draw exactly the shape of these, whatever these are called right here over the ears. I looked up all the names of all the pieces of the armor before I did this lesson, and wouldn't you know, I forgot the names of these things. But we're going to think about how much of the face we see. And again, the face today is not going to be at all drawn in, but just kind of going like that. If you wanted to, you could put the huge thing above it. I'm not going to do it. I might do it eventually in my painting, but I'm not going to do it in my drawing. So, okay, that's the rough map out. I say this every single lesson practically. When I first start out, you may say like, oh, I can't even see his drawing. I can't really even see my drawing either. I just have a lot of hazy shapes. And then as I get an idea of where I want to go, I start pushing in heavier. So you yourself may want to work that way, where you put in like very hazy shapes. All right, so there is right there the rough map out of the the overall head. So long story short, he is going to, let's jump into the face, because we want to think about the just kind of like the sense of like the Roman Centurion looking up at the figure of Jesus on the cross, right? So that's the lesson that we're doing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw in a nose right here. You'll notice that I'm kind of like, I'm going to abandon somewhat. I'm seeing on this in the messages that Bob, Fred, Kevin II, there are a lot of contenders for the name of this guy. So I don't know what his name is eventually going to be. I'm going to call him Bob. That works well. All right, so Bob the Centurion. Now I'm just going to map out a face like this. And now take a look. I want you to see how, do you see this far lapel right here? That like thing over his ear, it's already competing with his face. So that's confusing. So I'm going to erase that away, and I'm going to find a way to put that in better where it's not competing with his face. Like maybe as it is in the photo, or the video, in the upper corner, maybe I'll just move it out to here where it comes really far out like that. That's a possibility. I'll know in a little while, but in short, just join me in putting in the nose right here. And then we're just gonna kind of like hint at his mouth. Again, we're not gonna draw a detailed face today. We're just putting in the idea of a head right here. So his chin is being blocked by this huge thing. But for me, I actually want to see that chin. So what I'm going to do is, I think I'll put in like this huge square jaw, like this, and then I'll try to design in the lapel like coming like lower. I'm calling it, I don't know why I'm calling it lapel. I just like made up a word and now I'm using it like I'm some historian or something that calls the shots. All right, so now that's coming down over his ear, and maybe that's a little bit better. I'm gonna move the drawing up just a little bit so that we could see the bottom of the drawing a little bit better. I feel like maybe I made the top a little bit too high, like just a slight bit. So I'm just gonna bring that down just a little. All right, so it's starting to feel like I'm starting to make a little bit of sense. I want you to see again where I've totally changed the drawing. We can't see his face in that image, right? And yet I drew his face in. Maybe after all, I will allow us to like block his face, but for the moment, I kind of want to see, you know, his jaw and stuff like that. So this is why I work very loose and very sketchy. All right, so now I'm going to pause. I'm going to say, okay, are the overall shapes working? The helmet looks, again, a little bit too big for the head. Like it feels like his head is being swallowed. I know I've said this like 5 times in this Zoom call already, but that's the reason why I love working really loose. So now let me bring this in and see how that feels. And already that feels a little bit better to me. I don't want the helmet to feel like it's, you ever see like those low budget films on like, I don't know, anything. It could be a low budget film on Rome or Greece or something like that. And you could tell that they had just some extras floating around Los Angeles and they just like stuck them in helmets. And they're just these people that look like, you know, they belong in a cubicle and they're wearing these like huge helmets. I don't want that look. I want it to be convincing. So I want his helmet to fit him as if he could wear this thing in battle. All right, so I'm bringing in the helmet a little bit tighter right here to his head. And just gonna carry on down here. I wanna feel the roundness of the helmet. Like you see that arc right there? The roundness of that is very important to me because you want it to feel like it's going around his head right here. All right, so now let's jump over to the ear. So the ear guard, this whole area right here, this thing that covers his ear, that's if they got slashed from the side and it would protect them, right? So what I'm going to do now is jump over to the ear itself. And what's cool is they needed to be able to hear the sounds of the battle. The Roman soldiers needed to be able to hear the sounds of their commander. So they actually would have these cutaways for the ear like that so they could hear the voice of their commander. So, all right, that goes down right here. You could think of this moment right here, this little ear area. I might actually jump over to it so that you could see, because it's a little bit confusing as you look at it in person. So I'm going to narrate what's going on here. So it's almost like there's this, you could think of it as being a cylinder sliced in half, and then this is like emerging right here out. So like it comes around and then it still continues on down this way. It's a little bit just confusing from the picture. So jumping over back to here. I'm just going to think of a cylinder as you draw a cylinder on its side. So this is a cylinder on its side. Whoops, I'm blocking it just for a moment. So there's a cylinder on its side right here. Now let's slice the cylinder and make it really small. So that's a cylinder like really short and abbreviated, right? And now you could continue the side of the cylinder down, and that's what's going on with the earpiece right there. So I'll try to clean this up so that you can see it a little bit better. Everything else on the helmet, from our perspective, I feel like it's kind of like self-explanatory. Like, I'm not saying it's easy, but we can get to it. But I anticipated that this one little area would just be a little confusing. So it has like that quality to it. So let's repeat that over here. And maybe, all right, so it kind of comes like that. All right, so that looks pretty good. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to extend, there's these back ridges in the helmet. Right here, there's like 1, 2. I think they have areas like this, these little like, that little bubble, those double bubbles right there. They have that to reinforce the strength, I think. That's what I was reading. All right, so let's jump over to the neck guard. So the Centurions needed to be protected at their neck in case someone came up from behind. And so we're just gonna go like this, kind of like wraps around. And again, you'll notice that my perspective is a little bit different than yours. I seldom draw things exactly the way they are. I draw them the way that I want to see them for the art piece that I'm working on. So I think that's a pretty important point, actually, that we shouldn't be like beholden to drawing something necessarily exactly as it is. For me, nature, whatever's in front of me, is a very good suggestion, but ultimately what I design on my page has to fit my vision. All right, so that's the rough map out of everything. Now let's go into specifics. The visor on the front of the helmet is really cool. So let's jump back again over to this visor. So the visor protects them. If somebody came and sliced at them, then I'm just gonna push that down. Oh, it doesn't really want to go down further. So this right here, it would protect them if there's a slicing action this way, and it reinforced the strength of the armor in the front. So back here again, there's this visor, and we have it, again, tilted up, and that's okay. I actually think it's fine to go up. As you do this, maybe we should do a little blowout area over here so that we could think about what it is that we're drawing at the moment. I'll do it over to the other side. And when you're drawing something like let's say the visor, think of the whole helmet as being a circle, like that. And now onto that circle, I want you to draw a line like going around the circle, as if it was like the equator or something like that on a globe. So you feel it going around the globe. And then I want you to draw it as if it's the rings of Saturn going around it, like a disc going around Saturn like this. So there's the rings of Saturn right there. Not perfect, but you know, it does the job for my little illustration. And so now that we know, we think of this as being like, let's say the rings of Saturn. Let's tighten it up a little bit and go in and just sharpen up some of these. Again, I know it's just a simple illustration. Let's like sharpen up some of these shapes. So now you can see the ring going around. All right, now lastly, on this ring, let's put like a flat front to it. So what I want you to do is kind of like make it almost as if it's, I don't know, we used to have these things called, I forget what they were called, these like bouncy ball type things, pogo balls maybe, I don't know what they were when I was a kid. And it kind of has like this flat sense of the front of it. So that's how you want to think of the visor right here. So as we do the visor, think again that this whole thing is one sphere, and then we're going around that sphere. And I'm pretending as if I'm moving on the flat front of it. So it's a little bit of a flat front. And I go around like that, and then I wrap back into the helmet. So again, I'm going much lower. In actuality, it's like all the way up here, but I kind of want this lower on my design. So as ever, I always am changing things so that it fits my vision best. All right, so there is like the underside. I'll clean up a little bit with my eraser. And now I'm going to do the flat front a little bit cleaner. And then there's the upper part of the visor right there. And let's find how it inserts. So it's kind of like bolted to the helmet with this little triangular diamond shaped thing. So there we go, like that. And it's bolted to the side. Okay, so let's get more detail. I want to, there's this reinforced band right over here. Again, all of this is so that the helmet could take on like direct blows where somebody was like attacking it and it wouldn't collapse under the weight of that attack. So right here, there's like a band that just repeats the line of this. So let's strengthen this line right here. And let's echo the line of it up there. So we're just echoing that. All right, now there's like a little ridge halfway in between here and here. There's a ridge, and so I'm just gonna go like this, and I'm just gonna echo that ridge. All right, so there's a few more things that look pretty cool. I like this, there's a circle right here. And there's another circle right here. And I'm not quite sure what those things are, but they look really cool. All right, so let's strengthen the flap, the ear flap right here. And I'm just gonna, I know that I might be changing the shape of this, so I'm putting it in strong, but I'm not putting it in with the sense of like, oh, this is the final mark. Maybe I change it over. So the thing about Roman armor, about Greek armor, the thing about it is that they find helmets when they do these archaeological digs, and they find helmets like that are like remarkably intact. So now I'm just echoing the line of this to give it like trim. So it's like a double line right here. And coming around here, there's like a double line. Same line, just echoed. Silver and gold. And then, again, there are those cool circles like right here. So in these archaeological digs, they find helmets that are in incredible condition. And then the different helmets from the different periods, they just have obviously very different designs because the weapons with which they were being attacked, they changed. So some of their enemies went over to curvy swords, and so they had to, do you see this little emblazoned moment up here? That looks like it's just some kind of cool design. Like it's almost like, looks almost like a hood ornament on a 1950s car. It's like the letter, it's almost like two wings. The design of this is actually to strengthen, again, if they got hit, that would absorb the blow. So it was form in that it was decorative, but it was also function in that it actually served a purpose. All right, so we have everything kind of mapped out. Let's put in the hinge for the ear flaps right here. And there'd be another hinge on this side. Maybe I'll put it in, maybe I won't. Now what I want to do is I really want to ask myself what it is like that I'm doing with like the light source. And so if I could zoom out, I can't at the moment, but if I could zoom out, I would show you how I have light coming from the window from this direction right here. It's blasting everything. I close off all the other light in the room. I really want that sense of the light hitting his face, almost with this sense of like epiphany. Maybe I end up changing the angle in the final painting. I'm not sure. But if I want that sense of light hitting his face, then I have to get that rich shadow, right? So in order to get that rich shadow, what I'm going to do is look at how bright it is right up here. I'm just going to start blasting some things really dark really quickly. And that is where as ever, I get my powder out. And so I'm going to jump over to show you where I keep everything right here. And so you'll see right here, I have a little jar. It's a lid, and it has all graphite powder in it. And I just take it and I put it in my hands like that. And jumping back over to here, what I'm going to do is I just get my hands covered with the graphite powder. I know I'm going to leave the light on his face really, really bright. So I want to leave that like super bright right there. So I can go dark on the inside of that lapel right there, that ear guard. So I'll push that pretty dark right there. So that's one of the first things I know. I just know that's going to be super dark in there. All right, so then I'm going to do, what I'm going to do is I know that if, again, everything is just a sphere, and if we think of how we draw spheres, if light's hitting a sphere from this direction right here, then the whole side of the sphere is just going to go dark over here, right? Like that's just like basic shading on a sphere. Well, it's the same thing for the helmet right here. So even though, like I have a bright here, I have a lot of information over here as well though, I'm going to choose to like pretty much ignore that and just make this all pretty dark. Just blanket the whole thing in dark. Now, if you don't have graphite powder, I say the same thing as ever. I use graphite powder in these calls so that, in these Zoom classes, so that I can move quick for you guys. But if you just have a pencil, check this out. I'll take like this is a 2B pencil. It's the most common pencil that a lot of you have. And you can shade like this and shading like that. You'll be able to get the exact same result. It just takes a little bit longer. The reason why I like working with graphite powder is because I can move masses really quick and big. So like this. So if you see right there, that whole entire ear area just got dark so quickly. And then again, my graphite powder right here. If you're looking to buy graphite powder, I believe we have the link on the website. My wife was saying that she had put a lot of stuff up there. So I'm not sure, but I think you'll find it on there. And it's super easy. You can order it through art supply stores, things of that sort. All right, so now this is getting kind of like filled in a little bit over here. Gonna make the back of his neck like dark right there. Again, this is not a drawing of a man's face today. This is a drawing of a helmet. So I love how this ear guard is also like kind of in dark, because what that's going to do by making this ear guard pretty dark is it's gonna heighten the light on the face right here. And that's what I'm going for. I'm going for that moment of illumination when someone has like seen something and they're being transformed. All right, so let's just keep going with the shade. Let's get this a little bit darker over here. It's a little bit darker like that. And notice how I'm going over the whole drawing. I'm not really being careful to like hold back on certain moments. The whole thing is just getting darkened right here. So that's kind of like all masked in right over here. I could put a little bit of dark in the background just to pop the light right here. So we talk a lot about dark on light, light on dark. And so I'm just gonna put a little bit of dark in the background right there. All right, so now I have all that graphite powder on my hands. What I'm going to do is I jump back over. I take any leftover graphite powder. I generally put it right there. And now my hands are an absolute mess, if you see that right there. So what I'll do is I'll just take a paper towel. I'll do my best to just clean off. And okay, so now I can start strengthening the drawing. I have a 5B pencil right here. 5B is probably the right pencil for it. It's a little bit dull, so I'm just gonna turn down the volume for a moment and I'm gonna sharpen. And now I'm back. I didn't want to blow your eardrums out. And okay, so now what I can do with this 5B, if you don't have a 5B pencil, don't worry about it. It's not as if you need a 5B. But you can start getting specific. Everything, all the shading up till now has been vague, right? So now you can start getting specific with how like the shading like turns. The inside of this visor right here is pretty dark. And then you can get a blending stump and you can take the blending stump and you can kind of fill this in. But the combination of the pencil and the blending stump, if you don't have a blending stump, you could just use paper towel and that will help you blend it. But the combination of these two, getting this like really nice and sharp, helps you to start to like figure out like passages like right here. So this is a really important passage. And so I'm going to just like strengthen this. And let's give this guy, giving him something resembling an eye. Again, no detail today on the face. I don't care to draw in a face whatsoever. But I do want to have this helmet fit him nicely. And so look at how I get specific here. And that one dark passage really anchors the whole entire helmet. Okay, so now I'm gonna jump over to like, let's say the ear. That's another like passage that we could get darker and richer. And when we get darker and richer on that right there, then it's just gonna like really lift off. So let's go dark and rich right here. And we're going sharp as well. if you want, you can hint at the fact that there's an ear there. You can like do something like that. But in general, the whole area is just gonna be lost into darkness. And so now that's turning pretty well. The underside of this is pretty dark. I might smudge it in with my fingers right here. Okay, so now you can see that there's some cool passages here where, like, let's say the front of the helmet right here, it has these like highlights. My hands have gotten this all really dirty. So what you can do is you can erase away where the highlights are going to go. And they're gonna hit at like the valleys and the peaks of things. So this is like if this is an arch right here that we talked about, well, the light's gonna hit here, right? The light's also gonna hit here. The light's gonna hit the peak right here. So I just go back and forth and I just hit a lot of peaks and valleys to remind myself, okay, what's gonna be super bright? What's gonna be super dark? So those are like my light areas. You can't really see it with what I did there. So what I'm going to do is start darkening around the highlights. So the whole thing with drawing and painting, I've said this a lot in other classes, is if you want to make something light, then you have to make the paper dark. It's the absolute opposite of what you would expect. So if you want to make, I'll say that again, if you want to make something light, you have to surround it with dark. There are other ways of getting the effect, so I don't want to say that's the only way in drawing and painting, but that is a very strong way of getting like information. Of getting light. So that dark right there is kind of starting to pop out the light right there. Can you see that? The dark right here on his cheek is starting to pop out the light there. Maybe I end up having his cheek really light over here, and that's light. So I don't ever want to be a slave to these concepts, but I do want to just like use this principle where I can to really want to make the armor glisten. Now, if you want to get this real brilliant light up here, what I would suggest you doing is really pay attention to all the halftones right here and the halftones right here. And then really paying attention to how those read. You may want to go like really dark right over here. So I'm actually using the blending stump and I'm almost using it like as an applicator. It's not just making things softer, it's making them so much darker. And you see how that now is starting to feel like light is hitting it? This whole area over here, the upper part, it's not getting hit with light in quite the same way as down here. So I could just push all of this a whole lot darker. And maybe I blurred that out too much now. So what I want to do is go back and strengthen this like so. And more or less like that is how I would go through and work on all the transitions, all the moments in the piece, everything running down here, running down there. I would just continue to find, like let's say there's this cool little light right on the ear. Just these little details like make the drawing start to like come alive. Those really cool little medallion things right here. There's a little highlight here, there's a little highlight there. Little highlight here, little highlight there. And as you do these things, the drawing will really start to like lift off the page and pop off in like the coolest way. So anyway, that is like the lay-in for the helmet.